On January 8th, 2026, a YouTuber you may know had this to say. Specifically the first game on the N64 and its port on the GameCube.
Again, it's different games for different people. I'm gonna get so much flack for this. I don't understand how people can enjoy Animal Crossing. I really don't. But I think it's a me problem, because it's like I hate casual gaming. You know, it's like I don't want to spend 300 hours to find like a bone fossil to put in the museum. I feel like I need to get something out of a game.
What do we get out of video games? People, of course, play games for any number of reasons, like having fun, or getting better, or because of a deep-seated sense of self-hatred. But what do we really receive in return for investing hours upon hours of time into our favorite games? For most people, I think the answer boils down simply to satisfaction, usually at having accomplished some skill-based challenge created by the developer, themselves, or other people. But oftentimes, the games that leave the greatest impressions are the ones that do a little more than just offering a good challenge. If you want players to get the most out of your game, you have to give them a feeling that they can't find anywhere else. And for me, and many other people my age, there's few games that I get more out of than Animal Crossing. The original Animal Crossing was initially a Japanese-exclusive N64 game, later ported to the GameCube, then released internationally shortly after. For as cozy, cheery, and bubbly as Animal Crossing is often depicted, it was initially a game born out of loneliness. In a now lost interview with Edge magazine, director Katsuya Eguchi stated that he made the game to replicate moving away from home across Japan to work at Nintendo for the first time. This feeling of being the odd one out, the new guy on the block, is what the first Animal Crossing is all about. And it's crazy, you know, because he started working at Nintendo in 1986. This was long before the world was as interconnected as it is today. People were still sending letters to each other written by hand, and cars were made of stone and operated by foot. It was a different time, and the feeling of being far away from home was even more pronounced than it is today. This feeling is one that's all over Animal Crossing as a series, but especially in its first international installment on the GameCube. So that's the version of the game I want to talk about today. I may get to other games in the future, if that's something people want to see, but for today's episode, we're just going to focus on this Animal Crossing game. We're going to break down the game design, the writing, talk about why this game is so special to so many people, and also why it specifically struck a chord with people growing up in the elusive internet age. And it's not going to be hard, because Animal Crossing is absolutely amazing. The second you start the game, you're met with KK Slider, a dog with a guitar, aka the coolest guy you've ever seen in your life. He's a total rock star, uses words like groovy and shit, and he gives you a brief run-through of the circumstances you're in, leaving town for the first time. This brief monologue does a great job at setting the stage for your adventure, but I do wonder, in-universe, why does this happen? Are we hallucinating? My headcanon is just that we're a huge fan of KK Slider, so we listen to his music on our train out of town and picture him giving us advice. A bit parasocial maybe, but hey, living on your own is hard after all. After KK finishes giving us the slickest pep talk of our lives, we wake up on the aforementioned train out of town, and become face to face with this guy, Rover. He walks up to you and asks what the date and time are, then offers to sit across from you. He's the stereotypical guy you may meet on a trip. Friendly, but maybe just a tad too friendly, so it makes you a bit uncomfortable.
Dude, I'm from Detroit.
I've always felt off about Rover. Like, sure, he's cool and friendly, but he also literally railroads you into generational debt, so he's not the most honest guy in the world. Rover asks for your name, and we get to see the game's keyboard. For a game with so much writing, especially one played on a console without a mouse and keyboard, having a good text input system is massively important, and I think Animal Crossing nails it here. The keyboard being placed onto a GameCube controller that responds to your inputs is genius, and makes actually typing on this console feel very intuitive. It kind of makes me wish they did something similar for the Switch's UI. Not just with Animal Crossing, I mean like in general. This sterile keyboard that comes up every time you need to type something is really gross and unintuitive. Gosh, remember when UIs were like good on consoles? Anyways, I put in my name and this nosy fuck decides to call it weird, like I had the choice in what my parents named me. Then he asked me if I think the name is cool or cute, a cheeky way for the game to decide if I'm a boy or a girl. I always love things like this in games, because it implies that this dumb cat can't figure out if I'm a boy or girl just from, you know, looking at me. Maybe he just doesn't want to assume and he's being polite. Then he asks me where I'm headed, which gives me an opportunity to name the town I'm going to be living in and contributing to. But if I'm going to be living in a place, I think it's only right that I name it after an incredibly safe, almost sacred place in our real world. A place where kids help old ladies cross the street while simultaneously giving to charity and picking trash up off the road. A place where only good can happen. It's perfect. Rover over here is actually very familiar with Vegas, says it's one of his favorite vacation spots, which makes everything about him suddenly make sense. Then he asks me why I'm going there, which is none of his business, obviously, but then he gets mad at me for it, like he isn't the one playing 20 questions with my entire life and backstory. Anyways, he figures out I don't know where I'm staying when I get to Vegas, which checks out, and says he knows a guy there who can help me out. I already don't like where this is going. I know a hustle when I see it. This kind of situation is how people get shanked and robbed and stripped of all their self-worth. Rover says that his buddy has some brand new houses, dirt cheap, which proves that this game is a modern day fairy tale. Nothing screams unrealistic like brand new houses that are affordable for the average person. Jokes aside, I think it's actually very accurate to describe Animal Crossing as a kind of fantasy game. It depicts something close to the ideal situation for a high school or college graduate, moving out and seeing the world for the first time in their life. A lot of people in this situation today don't really get to interact with a small community, and have to go out of their way to feel part of the town that they live in. Animal Crossing gives the player immediate access to a village full of people for them to befriend and get to know, with all or most of them being eager to return the favor. This setting is legitimately one of the game's biggest strengths, and it's a big part of what makes this game so lovable for so many people. With all the game's preamble finally done with, it's time for us to pull into the station and take our first steps into Vegas. As soon as we step off the train, we're greeted by Tom Nook, the other half of the hustle that we're almost certainly being subject to. Tom Nook is the closest thing to Animal Crossing's antagonist. Though he's not exactly a villain, he's the source of the game's main obstacles and challenges. Consequently, he's not the nicest dude, openly laughing at your poor financial situation and bad life choices. He takes us to a small set of houses for us to choose from, all set up in a sort of mini neighborhood. These are apparently the brand new houses mentioned earlier, and they also apparently don't have any locks on the doors. In Vegas. Right off the bat, this opening is one of the biggest differences that the OG Animal Crossing has when compared to its more modern releases. You can't choose where your house is. This sounds like a relatively mild issue, but one of the best parts of modern Animal Crossing games is how customizable they are. For a game where the player is meant to create a life for themselves, the first 3 Animal Crossing games are fairly limited as far as personalization goes. The latter 2 games in the series, New Leaf and New Horizons, both have near limitless potential when it comes to designing your own personal town. This is perhaps the biggest weakness of the original Animal Crossing, at least when compared to its modern incarnations. In this game, you are stuck in this neighborhood, with no way to change pretty much anything about the outside world. Aside from the specific combination of villagers in a town, there is very little to distinguish one person's town from another's, and in a game about establishing your very own life in a new place, that can feel a little limiting. That said, it is a downside that has a few silver linings as well. A problem that New Horizons in particular suffers from is that it's so customizable that it lacks almost any identity on its own. At times it can feel like you're the god of your own island, not just a dude who happened upon a deed to a brand new place. When you're able to change so much about a game and the way it appears, it's really hard for there to be any real through line between different runs of the game as a whole. Not to mention, the drop-off in the amount of shops and things to do compared to New Leaf or even City Folk is one of the biggest drawbacks of New Horizons when compared to the other games in the series. For everything it gains in customization, it loses just as much in terms of its personality. Personality that the OG Animal Crossing is absolutely filled to the brim with. There's also something to be said about how you aren't really important in these older games. You're just a dude who moved to town, not the mayor or landowner or anything special. It makes it feel a little more cozy at times, since there isn't really any pressure to perform or do any one thing. You can be as good or bad of a neighbor as you want, and the game doesn't really punish you in any major way for it, aside from how the villagers specifically treat you. It's a different pace compared to the newer games, but can definitely feel like a breath of fresh air by comparison. Back to the opening. Yeah, this is gonna be a bit of a fixer-upper. Alright, so we pick our house, talk to Nook, and he learns that we're basically completely broke. I guess it isn't that unrealistic of a game after all. Nook then hires us to work part-time at his shop, in a move that I'm sure he and Rover had planned all the way back when that stupid cat saw me on the train. Like I said, I know a hustle when I see it. Anyways, we're working part-time now. Nook briefly tells us about our neighbors, explains that the gyroid by our door is for saving our game, and then sends us to find his shop in Acre A5. He also mentions that we can use the map near the station if we get lost, which may clue you into the fact that, unlike every other game in the series, we don't start with a map. I actually quite like this change, despite how jarring it can be by comparison to other games that are more forgiving. It forces the player to more intuitively learn the layout of their village early on, without leaning too heavily on their personal map to get to know where things are. It's a relatively small change, it's not going to be long before we have our own map, but I do like it. Speaking of small changes, this is the only game in the series to have a camera-based acre system, where parts of the map are divided between different sections, and the camera snaps from acre to acre as the player moves. This is clearly a change made to conserve memory and limit what the game needs to immediately render and load while the player is moving. It doesn't really affect gameplay all that much, aside from making moving about the village slightly slower, but it's a change notable enough that I felt it at least worth mentioning. Before we head to Nook's shop and start our part-time job, let's say hi to some of our neighbors. In the acre next to our house, a very ditzy frog named Emerald can't seem to remember where she's seen us last. She, might be seeing things. Over here I found a penguin named Frigga, who I'm sure will greet me to the town with open arms. What? My name is Childish? What is it with everyone in this game thinking my name sucks? And what the hell did I do to you? Yeah, so the villagers in this game are some of the sassiest, rudest people you may ever meet. Some of them are fine, like our schizophrenic frog friend Emerald, but a lot of these villagers will absolutely trash you when you first talk to them. I just wish I could say something back to them, you know? Stand up for myself. Cause the last thing I need to do is get talked down to by a penguin, of all animals. Maybe I'd actually respect you if you could fly like a real bird. Oh yeah, Frigga, I sure love all the fruit trees in Vegas. Yeah, they're just fucking everywhere. You stupid. Finally, an elephant. One of the best creatures in all of Animalia. You know, elephants are often depicted as regal creatures. Like Jungle Book has the elephants be old war veterans. And I think that's pretty fitting for one of the longest living animals on Earth. So let's see what Dizzy's deal is by comparison. Nah, okay. Clearly the Animal Crossing devs have never went to animal stereotype school, because Dizzy is a complete scaredy cat. At least he's a kind person and welcomes me to town, unlike somebody else I know. Jokes aside, these villagers, especially when compared to modern releases, absolutely ooze personality. When people discuss this game, the villagers' dialogue is often the most widely talked about aspect that people celebrate, and I think I understand why. It goes back to a point I made earlier. The original Animal Crossing doesn't go out of its way to make the player feel special. It plops them in an established town as a regular citizen and expects them to make themselves at home. When you move into a town for the first time, it's not realistic to expect everyone in the town to be polite to you. That's just not how the world is. In its own way, Animal Crossing's cartoonishly mean villagers actually make the world feel more dynamic and lived in, and give the player a concrete goal to strive for. Every day they can choose to make amends with these more crotchety villagers, maybe even befriending them down the line, and that in and of itself can be a satisfying gameplay journey. We'll talk more in detail later about Animal Crossing as a sandbox game, but the ruder villagers the game occasionally throws at you are a great way to give the player a more dynamic experience, and make the process of befriending them feel like a worthwhile goal from the moment you introduce yourself to them. Going back to our part-time job, Nook starts by giving us a very simple task. We have to change into his part-time work clothes, which gets us familiar with how to customize our character. Then we have to go plant a bunch of flowers and trees around Nook's shop, known as Nook's Cranny, which is, by the way, one of the best names for anything ever. Because I actually hate Nook and I wish the worst for him, I decided to plant all of the flowers away from his shop so that they can never be associated with him, and then put all of the trees directly in front of the entrance so that he has trouble leaving. When I talk to him after completing the job, he notes that I could get laughed at by the other villagers for planting flowers badly, which, given the experience so far, sounds about right. He then gives me a trifling 80 bells payment for my gardening work. If bells are meant to be analog to Japanese yen, given that Animal Crossing was made in Japan, then Nook just gave me a whopping 51 American cents for my hard work. This has to qualify as unfair labor or something. Although I guess I can't complain too much, as this comparison would also mean that the total debt I have to pay to own my house is a whopping $125. This is the most unrealistic game ever made. Our next task is to introduce ourselves to everyone in town. A pretty standard task for lifesim games like these. We've already met Emerald, Frigga, and Dizzy, so let's see who else we've got next. Ah, looks like elephants are the dominant species in our town. Axel isn't nearly as ditzy as Dizzy was, and he offers to stand up for us if the other animals give us trouble. We may need this in case Frigga decides to start a coup and take over the town by force. While I was walking around looking for houses, I stumbled upon this sign. There's a number of signs around your town, with each of them having something interesting to say. Some give specific tips on how to do things in the game, whereas others, like this one, are a bit more cryptic. Cutting down a tree just to get its fruit is foolishness itself. I think that this is actually intended as a meta-commentary on the game, a message to the player about how to handle Animal Crossing when compared to other kinds of video games. Whereas Final Fantasy or Mario might be about getting to the end goal of killing God, or getting a smooch from the princess, Animal Crossing is much more about the journey than the destination. The fun of this game is largely what you make it. Sure, the game gives you goals and things to strive for, but how you accomplish those goals is completely up to you. And if you rush to reach those goals as quickly as possible, disregarding the act of stopping to smell the roses and take everything in, then you may not have a good time. If you cut the tree just to receive its fruit, you're behaving foolishly. I'll talk more about this later, but this stop and smell the roses mentality is a large part of why I think Animal Crossing has stuck with so many people, especially those born into Generation Z. It's rare for a game to have a philosophical thesis statement about what its purpose is buried within the game itself, but it is certainly a very Animal Crossing thing to do. Going north, we come across Rasher, our next villager to introduce ourselves to. Upon talking to us, he immediately accuses us of skulking and says that we shouldn't be scared of him. Given that we moved to Vegas, this is exactly the kind of person I was worried about running into on the streets. At least he apologizes for being mean. Let's talk to him again and see what he's up to.
Money, everybody wants money, like that'll solve all your ills, swine.
Okay, this guy clearly has issues. I'm glad we live on opposite sides of town. Oh, and he lives right next to Frigga. They probably have morning conversations about their favorite war crimes. Frigga tells us that Tom Nook is going to get a bigger shop when he makes enough money. In a typical game, this might come across as random NPC dialogue, but this is actually completely true and correct in Animal Crossing. Tom Nook will in fact expand his shop when you give him enough items, a worthwhile sign of your progress. Animal Crossing excels at these natural ways of delivering dialogue, where you can get a better understanding of the game and the world just by talking to people, without it feeling like the game is spoon-feeding you its entire life story. I kind of hate when NPCs in games are just like, push the A button to use your sword, like they know what any of the words they just said mean. I much prefer when the developers find a way to explain that to the player with the information that the characters in-universe would have at their disposal. It's much more natural that way. The last animal villager to introduce ourselves to is Maddie. Why does everyone think that we're stalking them? So much for the friendly life sim game. Everyone just profiles me as a criminal the second I walk up to them. Running back to Tom Nook's place, I ended up walking past the dump, a place where random stuff will just appear each day. It's a great way to find new things for your house or new clothes to put on your body, although it's kind of redundant because the police station serves almost the exact same purpose, and this place has 2 police dogs that run the place. These guys, Copper and Booker, are the law and order around Vegas, although they don't seem to be doing a great job if Rasher is anything to go by, and they just let me take whatever I want from the lost and found with absolutely no repercussions, so they kinda just suck at their job. We will make use of this by taking and changing into a brand new shirt. Across from the police station is the Able Sisters, your one-stop shop for all things fashion. Much of Animal Crossing's base customization still works the same in the first installment as it does in every subsequent installment. The main drawback is just the lack of specific slots for clothing to go on. There's no way to customize your pants or shoes, no way to change your hat or even take it off, and tragically no way to even change your skin color. A feature that took till New Horizons in 2020 to be added to the game. Kind of ridiculous. It should be pretty clear by now, but customization is not what you should be expecting if you're playing the original Animal Crossing. That's something handled much better by New Leaf and New Horizons. Sable and Mabel are both great though, as always. Probably my personal favorite special villagers in all of the series. Anyways, the last person we have to talk to is the mayor of the town, Tortimer. He's a crotchety old turtle who's lamenting the fact that we're much younger than he is. Apparently being the mayor of Vegas is pretty important, and we should talk to him whenever there's a holiday for a special prize. A cool incentive to have us coming back to the game regularly on special days. Next to the mayor is this wishing well, a feature that's exclusive to the OG version of Animal Crossing. It will tell you what parts of your town need cleaning, changing, or otherwise addressing in some way. A very useful feature, and a great way to ensure that the player always has a goal or something to do when they visit their town. Let's head back to Tom Nook now that I've met everyone. I really want to know what he thinks of my new outfit. I guess he's a bit meaner about it than I thought. No fun allowed when you work at Nook's Cranny, even though you work for basically nothing. Next, we're forced to deliver furniture to Emerald, a common enough task in Animal Crossing that it is probably important for us to learn how to do it. Animals will often give the player deliveries to complete for some sort of prize, as well as other tasks like finding a lost item or writing a letter. It's one of those fundamental parts of the Animal Crossing gameplay loop, and the main way to make better friends with the other animals, while also receiving more stuff to customize with. After the delivery, Nook asks you to send a letter to one of the villagers, in this case Axel. This is actually another fundamental part of Animal Crossing, especially the earlier games. Villagers will actually read and hold on to these letters, and send you replies that can actually be super apt responses to whatever you said. It does this through a very extensive keyword system that would take forever to explain the technical side of here, so I highly recommend Hunter R's videos on the game's letter system, as well as Animal Crossing in general. He makes great content. Ah, there. Perfect. I'm sure Axel's gonna love it. After we send it and go back to Nook, he gives us yet another task to... Ah, shit. I got my elephants mixed up. After writing another, definitely not angry letter to our wonderful neighbor and sending it, Nook finally tells us to go do a task for one of the other villagers. I go to Frigga, hoping to get on her good side, and do a delivery for her. Then I go back to Nook for yet another task, and... Look, I love this game, and I especially love how slow-paced it is, but the fact that the first hour and a half of gameplay is spent doing an excessive amount of tasks for Nook is exhausting. I get wanting to explain to the player how the basic mechanics work, right? But this game does so well with making its world feel natural that this long-winded series of fetch quests just makes me feel like the game doesn't respect my intelligence enough to figure shit out on my own. There's a reason that later games in the series get the player out of the tutorial way quicker. This is just entirely too slow. I don't mean to sound like a zoomer with a low attention span, it's just redundant to make me repeat so many of these tasks. Like, you have to deliver things 4 different times. And it's not like it's complicated to get an object and take it from point A to point B. Certainly not complicated enough to make me do it 4 separate times. This tutorial shtick is honestly a nitpick in the grand scheme of things. It's not like it affects things after this point, but it is important for games to make a good first impression, and I think that this is bound to turn a lot of people away before they actually get to playing this great game. Next up, we have to do yet another delivery. Nothing changes except that he tells us that having a rug that matches our wallpaper is the way to go. Then we have to, believe it or not, do a 4th delivery. This time, to Dizzy. We are very biased toward the elephants, it seems. Though the game does something really cool here. The animal you do the 4th delivery to will always be the same animal you sent the letter to earlier, with them even showing you the letter and asking you about it after they receive it. I hope Dizzy isn't too mad about what I wrote. It did come from the heart. Next, and hopefully finally, Nook asks us to put up an ad on the bulletin board in our cul-de-sac. I'm not sure what for, it's not like anyone other than me lives here, but sure, I'll write something that truly conveys exactly how I feel about Nook's Cranny. After doing that, it turns out Nook has no more work for us. He says that we have to figure out how to pay the loan on our own, and then sends us out into the world, jobless and without a solid direction. So, now what? Well, the game lets the player answer that question. Of course, if you've been paying attention, there are numerous ways the game gives you to make money. Sell things from the dump, do things for the villagers, sell fruit and seashells from around town. These are all viable options that the game shows you in the tutorial in order to accomplish the goal of making bells. But the specifics, and how long you take to do all of that, is completely up to you. After this tutorial, there aren't really scripted events to cover in a review like this. From this point onward, everyone's town will look a little bit different. There are a few mechanics that aren't mentioned in the tutorial, namely fishing, bug catching, and fossil hunting. These are all useful in filling up the museum, this big building that looks like the Parthenon, and act as the game's other form of progression aside from making money. It's run by an owl named Blathers, who will gladly accept anything from those 3 categories for donation at his museum. Of course, fish, bugs, and fossils are also a great way to make money, integrating the museum with the overall goal of the game pretty well. Other than that, though, that's pretty much Animal Crossing. Everyone's journey from the end of the tutorial will look largely different, whether it be a focus on expanding your house, filling the museum, or making friends with the villagers. There's no one way to play Animal Crossing. The only part that's consistent is that the game won't let you speed through it, no matter what you're doing. Unless you want to do some shenanigans involving time travel, Animal Crossing doesn't let you sprint to the finish line, and if you do choose to time travel and play the game that way, you're probably missing the point of Animal Crossing as a whole. This game isn't about getting to some final endpoint, as I mentioned earlier. It's just about doing things gradually and taking everything in. Maybe you log on for a few minutes one day, 2 hours the next, and then maybe you wait 2 weeks before checking in one more time. No time is spent wasted in Animal Crossing, because it's never about the fruit in the tree, it's about the process of cutting it down. Normally I don't like getting serious or talking about real life stuff on this channel, but for a game like Animal Crossing, I feel it's absolutely necessary. Because Animal Crossing, at least in my eyes, isn't a normal game, where you're supposed to just pick up and play through it in the same way you would read a book or watch a movie. It's not a linear experience that you can just finish whenever you want. It doesn't even really have an end. Animal Crossing isn't a game that separates the player from real life. It's a game that's meant to accompany one's life. If a traditional video game is like a book, then Animal Crossing is closer to a diary or a notebook, something that the player imprints themselves on once in a while to get some satisfaction or progress. This is a concept that's absolutely going to resonate with those of all ages, but I think there's a reason it struck a chord with Gen Z in particular. In an age where jobs are becoming increasingly harder to come across and house prices are only going up, young people like myself are always looking for a way to feel like we're actually going somewhere. Like life isn't a stagnant process of ramming your head into a wall until something sticks. And for me, and many others, Animal Crossing allows for us to feel that sense of satisfaction and progression, even when other parts of life don't feel like they're really going anywhere. I graduated college last month, in December of 2025, and seeing my life stretched in front of me, not knowing where it will go, is legitimately scary and a difficult thing for me to fully grasp. But returning daily to my home away from home in Animal Crossing has been a nice reprieve from stressful days of job hunting or working tirelessly on these videos. And I know this is a feeling that's not exclusive to me. Just a simple YouTube or Google search will turn up hundreds of testimonies just like mine. It's nice to play a game where paying off debt is always within reach somehow, where there's always a choice between working and relaxing, where people always want to talk and hang out with you. Because what we get out of Animal Crossing isn't experience points or a ranked badge or anything like that. What we get out of Animal Crossing is simply a home, a place of self-care where we can relax for a couple hours to de-stress before getting back to our real lives. When Katsuya Eguchi first created Animal Crossing, he made it to resemble the feeling of loneliness that comes from moving away from home. But in a twist of irony, he ended up giving millions of people another kind of home, one located in their pocket or on their TV, where they can always come back no matter what's happening and feel welcome. That's the wonder of Animal Crossing, and why it's one of the most unique and beautiful games ever made. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to give yourself a break today. Have a good one.